Teachers are a critical element in terms of increasing student achievement. In fact, you could change everything in a school. If you do not have excellent teachers in there, you are not going to make the needle move in the way that you want it to move. And we really believe that you cannot teacher-proof a school. So a lot of people think that if you get the right curriculum, if you train your teachers in a certain way, anybody can do it. That is not the case. Teachers are our most precious resources. The job they do is incredibly hard, and having an outstanding teacher, research has actually shown that having an outstanding teacher for 3 years versus having a poor teacher for 3 years, you end up with a tremendous difference in terms of where the students, in their testing, in their outcomes, of where they end up. Of the teachers we bring in, they're mostly shortage area. So about 85% are teaching in critical shortage subject areas, and they're mostly teaching in Title I schools. 71% teach in Title I schools, which are the highest need schools. Last year, 66% of all the new special education and math teachers that New York City brought in were teaching fellows. And by now, almost 1 in every 4 teachers that teaches math in the city is a New York City teaching fellow. And we don't think it's any coincidence that we've seen the scores steadily rise in the math area as we have brought in qualified teachers to teach math. That in the past year, there have been reports about New York City test scores dramatically rising in math. And when you look at where those gains have been, they're predominantly in Brooklyn and the Bronx, which is where we provide the most teachers. So there's a lot of talk about teacher shortages across the country, and we have a little bit of a different take on teacher shortages. First, when we first started working at TNTP, people would tell us, we're an urban district, nobody wants to work here. We are the last-ditch effort for somebody who can't get a job. So we started to collect data because we were working in the districts. And one of the things we found was there actually are thousands of people that want to work for these districts. The urban districts, the tough urban districts, they're inspired by the challenge. But the problem is the hiring timeline of these districts is so delayed that they start out with a pretty decent pool of teachers in the beginning of the year. They go through sort of months and months and months because of bureaucracy and policy. They cannot hire until August for the coming September. So if you think about who is left in a pool in August to start teaching the following month, it's probably the only people who don't have any other options. So you start out with a pretty good pool when you weed down to the least attractive candidates. Therefore, even the best HR department couldn't overcome these types of things. So we think it's critical that you have to ensure that you're removing those barriers from getting those urban districts to hire the best teachers, because there are people who want to teach in those districts. When we ask our teachers what's most important to them, or we ask them what keeps them in the classroom or why they stay, which to us is critically important, because you can't have effective teaching unless you are retained in the classroom. It is always school leaders. It is about who is in charge of the school, the culture they set, and what they do for the teacher. So that is a critical pairing there. In order to retain your best teachers, first we think it's important at the district level there be somebody who's focused on retention, who feels the accountability to say it's my job to think about how we retain our top teachers in this district. That may not necessarily be by school, but it means keeping them, that talent, in the district. The second piece of that is that when we ask our teachers what would inspire them to leave or why they would leave their positions, it is all school level items. So a good retention strategy is to ensure that you have school level support. That means whether that is the principal, an assistant principal, an instructional leader, somebody who is focused on supporting those teachers and meeting their needs at the school level and who sees them on a regular basis. So an effective school needs to have an instructional leader. It doesn't necessarily need to be the principal. If it can be the principal, that's great. But if it's not the principal, it has to be clearly somebody else that is the instructional leader that is focused on instructional practice in that school. And then you need to make sure that you're managing your teams well. So if you're a large high school where you have assistant principals, the truth is a lot of your teachers don't ever see you as a principal. They interact with your APs. So you need to make sure those APs are managing and carrying your messages out just in the same way as you would. Because if you happen to be great, but your APs are not, you're never going to be able to keep your teachers or run an effective school. We see a lot of our teachers bringing parents into the schools and really tapping into the community. I think the most important thing is to understand the community that you're teaching in. So maybe that means really getting to know the parents and really reaching out to families, or maybe it means being very involved in the community. But it's really key to understand where your students are coming from so that you can understand their challenges and you can help them address those challenges. Parents are one great way to do that, to really invest in the school, to understand what it is they want for their kids. Because the truth of the matter is, every parent, no matter what background they come from, they want the same things for their kids. We all want that our kids can get an education, to have all the opportunities in the world. I think when you think about a smaller city, it's even more inspiring, because you can count the number of teachers, you can count the number of school leaders. We can do this together if we can focus on the right things and use the right resources and rally the community behind it. I think that is a challenge that we can, in a matter of years, we can make it better and we can actually track the progress.